Okay, so it's 8:01 Moscow time. I think we should get started. First of all, I would like to say hello to everyone. My name is Evgenia Raspopova, or just Jane for all the participants today, to make it easier. I'm a lawyer. I work for Neva Patient Patent Law Boutique. We are located in St. Petersburg, Russia. And a couple of words about this project, which is called IP Legal English Speaking Club. It was launched in October 2019. And the aim of this project is actually to welcome all the specialists, all IP lawyers and people who are interested in IP area all around the world, and to share our experience to practice legal English in IP area, intellectual property area. And that is actually why we are meeting today online. It's our 8th meeting, by the way. So due to this COVID reasons, I think it's still good result. So 4 meetings a year. And today we would like to welcome our speakers from India. I would like them to introduce themselves just in a couple of seconds. And just a couple of words about safety issues. The link is open. So if something goes wrong, I mean, in case there is some attack, I will stop this conference and we will re-enter the same, using the same link. Just that's it. A couple of words about questions. There will be 2 parts by presentation. So the speakers will welcome your questions in the chat. Please write them down and please wait for the answers after each part. So I think that's it. And please, I'm giving you the word. I think you can see the presentation. Again, if something goes wrong and you cannot see the presentation or the sound is not good, please write it in the chat. We will react immediately, of course.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Prabpreet Singh. I'm assistant professor in the School of Law, Manipal University, Jaipur. I was also a research advisor in South Ural State University, Russia, from 2020 to 21. And I'm also a member of European Board for Data Protection Professionals in Amsterdam. And evolution of IP laws has been quite a new area and interesting area, because in this technological era we cannot overlook this IP laws, because we are in some other way we get to interact with these laws. And now I would like to hand the floor to my co-speaker. This is Ms. Shruti Patolia for her introduction.
So I'm Shruti Patolia, and I've been working as an assistant professor in School of Law, Manipal University, Jaipur. The area of my specialization is constitutional and administrative law, but the intellectual property laws are the area of my interest. Today, I'll be dealing with the introductory part of the lecture, introduction to the IPR, and then how the laws in the intellectual property laws in Russia and in India got developed. So that will be my topic of presentation for today. So introducing to the topic. So the meaning of the intellectual property is basically an intellectual work, which is produced by the intellect of human brain, as we all know. These are the literary works, the musical works, or some inventions also. So the intellectual property is termed as a property, though it is an intangible property. Intangible basically means which cannot be touched, but it can surely be felt. So the intangible property it is. The property basically means that The reason why it is known as a property is that it can be sold, it can be purchased, and even mortgaged. So this is the privilege we have with the intellectual property. The person who creates an intellectual piece of work owns it like any other tangible property, like land or movable goods. The intellectual property is important because it protects the innovative spirit. The innovative spirit, and it also develops the economic growth. It helps to develop the economic growth. Plus, it also helps in research and development in a country. Now, moving to the some particular types of intellectual property. So there are patents. These patents are basically the invention capable of commercial application. Designs are also termed as the intellectual property because there are certain shapes of bottles or marks or patterns. So all these things, the designs also make any product distinguishable from the others. So this is also a reason that designs are included in intellectual property. Then the third is trademarks. Trademarks are identifiable by seeing. These are those marks or those particular distinguishable things which are there, which are assigned to a particular product or a company. Then geographical indications are one another thing. Geographical indications basically mean the products or the intellectual property which originate in a particular territory. For example, in India, there is a Geographical Indication of Goods Act 1999. So because of this, the things which grow or which develop or manufacture in particular areas, which are unique because of the climate or soil, etc., are distinguishable. Then there is copyright. Copyright are creations of literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic works. And it also has right to reproduce. Then I would like to draw your attention also to the evolution of intellectual property around the globe. So around the globe, majorly we can divide it into three parts. The first is the territorial period. Second is the international period. And the third is global period. So in the territorial period, basically, there was absence of international production or protections. And then in the international period, it began in Europe towards the end of 19th century, where some countries agreed to the Paris Convention. Paris Convention was basically for the protection of industrial property in the year of 1883. Then after that, there was a Berne Convention in the year of 1886 for the protection of artistic work. So from here itself, the international period got started. Apart from this, after this, the global arena of the protection of international or the intellectual property began. It started from USA, where there was the World Trade Organization and the TRIPS, the agreement of TRIPS. So after that, the global protection of this was acknowledged. Now coming to the Indian evolution of intellectual property laws in India. See, earlier the thing was, earlier during the 1960s, India believed in the welfare economy. Welfare economy means it is basically a evolution of socialist approach towards the market. Nationalization was also prevalent at that time. So India was severely affected by the collapse of Soviet Union, and it was left only with the option to choose free market economy to sustain in the global market. With liberalization, the challenges were bigger than before, since not only the protection was needed to be given to the product in Indian market, but also to the product that the intellectual property rights in international market to achieve exclusivity over the production and distribution of the same. So after the liberalization, this became even important that the products in India must show their exclusivity. India also became committed to the World Trade Organization under the trade-related intellectual property right agreements, which are popularly known as the TRIPS agreement. So government took a leap of steps to make sure India stands on the intellectual property laws and being acceptable in international level. So because of being a member of the World Trade Organization and agreeing to the TRIPS agreement, India made several changes in its intellectual property laws, so to be at par in the global market with everyone. So there were some of the changes which India took. So first of all, India started with replacing the Trade and Merchandise Act 1958 with the Trademarks Act 1999 to bring Indian trademark law in persistence of international practice and to make sure that India is keeping up its commitment to TRIPS agreement. Following the changes, some changes were the service marks were introduced to the protection of the first time. Service marks are basically those marks which are registered in the names or the designation of a particular organization. So these marks were also started to be protected under the trademark law under India. And then after that, there was graphical representation, shapes, combinations of colors. Then all these things were included in the definition of trademarks. After this, the period of registration was also changed from 7 years to 10 years. Then under the new law, both registered and unregistered trademarks were assigned with or without goodwill of the business. India also enacted the Geographical Identification of Goods Registration and Protection Act in 1999, which provides for registration and better protection of the geographical indication relating to the products which are unique to the particular climate, soil, or particular weather. So some of the examples are basmati rice, Darjeeling tea, Alfonso mango, Hyderabadi grapes, etc. The Copyrights and Patents Act were also amended from time to time to cope up with the changing environment. And the recent amendment in the patent law, they have changed many things. The new amendment have made very easy for filing the statement of commercial working of patented inventions for every financial year. Now, I would like to come to the evolution of Russia, how the intellectual property laws developed in Russia. After the Communist Revolution in 1970, Russia's political and economic system immediately changed to meet the socialist idea. In that particular time, the inventions and the technologies were no longer recognized as the sole domain of the creators. And the Soviet government was largely free from the international agreements concerning the IPRs. Then after that came the new economic policy, which spanned a critical period during the first half of the 1920s. It affected the intellectual property protection, and it also affected the copyright protection in early Soviet era. After that, the Civil Code adopted in 1964. It was the first piece of significant, significant author rights. Significant author rights were protected through this, though till now international agreements were not recognized in Russia. So the Civil Code of 1964 is important in this regard. There was already prevalent problem of piracy also with the intellectual property in Russia, which was not properly addressed at that time. But after the Soviet era, the post-Soviet era, there was the laws were developed in a very better way. With the demise of USSR, the protection of intellectual property was in a different position. That time also the Russia did not have the patent department, And 1991 USSR law on inventions was inconsistent with several Russian federations. Though after the demise of the USSR, law became better through amendments, but the amendments did not go far enough to reform it very largely. The issue of piracy was still there, and there were some gaps and confusions still there. But on August 22nd, 2012, Russia became a member of World Trade Organization and accepted the TRIPS amendments also. So from that time, various changes, various amendments were made, and overall now the IP laws, the IP legislations in Russia are very successful, and there are several changes made in the Criminal Procedure Code and Civil Procedure Code of 2006 also replaced earlier existing regime. Now greater dealing with piracy is there. Legal regime is very clear and very effective. The arena of intellectual property is very much broadened now, and the Criminal Procedure Code also has increased the police activity in combating the piracy. It is also a member, Russia is also a member of World Trade Organization and TRIPS. So this was my part, which I had to cover, the introduction and the evolution in India and Russia. And now I would like to call Professor Prapreet Singh for his part.
Okay, just my small comment. If you can speak up a bit, please, that will be great. For some time, sound is not very clear. Okay, so just a bit. And if you can put the presentation on the full screen, that will be also great, if it's possible. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Now I'll be dealing with the second part of the presentation. And this is the most interesting part which is happening all around the world right now. Because one question which comes in the time of artificial intelligence. And these questions deal with everything. Because when we say IPR rights, we understand those rights which are intangible and whose violation we need to stop, because everything is on the internet. Everyone is using the internet, and how to stop the abuse of our IPR rights. For example, if I'm a user or if I'm a developer and I invent some patent, and in that case, if some other persons maybe copies my algorithms which I use for my patent, or without my consent, or second maybe a case where I use the artificial intelligence, and through artificial intelligence I invent something new by using you can say hybrid or some kind of algorithms. I invent something new. In that case, the question comes, who will be the owner, or who will get the authorship rights of that patent, copyright, or we can say of that trademark? Who get those rights? So first instance can be a person who has input all those data into the AI, and due to which this new invention has come up. Another contention can be the person who has developed that AI software. That person will be the author. And another contention which can also be that both the persons who have input the data and the person who has developed that AI, both persons will get the authorship of that patent, copyright, or trademark. So this is the ambiguity which we are facing. And recently there was a decision in South African court where AI, Dabus, that was given the patent rights, authorship rights of the patent. Now, when we are addressing all these ambiguities, we can trace the evolution of it through different countries, how AI and IPR have worked together. And what about the authorship of a AI when a patent or a trademark or a copyright is developed through a AI? Who gets the authorship? So when we consider the case of United States, in United States, they have a copyright office which declare that it will register an original work of authorship, provided the work was created by a human being. So the thing which is need to be addressed here and highlight is a human being. So they are not considering the case of an AI. They only consider where it is a creation of a human being in their copyright laws. Now this stance was followed in Feast Publication versus Rural Telephone Service Company, a case of 1991 long back, which specified that copyright law only protects the fruit of intellectual labor that are founded in the creative powers of the mind. So they are not going for AI, they are particularly addressing only human can get copyright. So in case if there is a copyright developed through AI, they will not give that copyright or authorship of that copyright to the AI. Now the second list of options are the countries which give authorship to the programmer. Now these countries include, this is Hong Kong, India, Ireland, New Zealand, and UK. Now India, recently there was a case where a copyright, a painting was made by a AI, and that AI was Raghav. Now this Raghav was a software. The person only input certain kind of part of the paintings, and that AI automatically arranged that painting in a, we can say, in a very beautiful and creative way. And regarding this copyright of this painting, so the Indian Copyright Office gave the authorship to that person who input that data, and co-authorship was given to the AI, the person who developed that AI. Following the case of Debus, where in South African courts gave the copyright to a patent, authorship of a patent to a AI. Following that model, Indian courts have also started giving the co-authorship to the persons who have developed that AI. So when we consider the case of UK, now UK have a copyright law where section 9 subclause 3 of Copyright Design and Patent Act says that in case of a literary, dramatic, musical, or artistic work, now this is to be addressed here, highlighted, which is computer generated. So they are addressing this issue because now it is coming up that AI is generating different innovations or inventions or artistic works. So they are addressing this issue in their legislation, which is saying that if it is developed through a computer generated, the author shall be taken to be the person by whom the arrangement necessary for the creation of the work was undertaken. So the person who is giving the inputs and the person who has developed that AI both gets the authorship of that copyright. Now, when it comes to certain different acts, this is section 173 of the act which defines that. Again, a computer generated, this protection is given for 50 years. So like in India, we have patent and copyright, which is given for 20 years. But in this jurisdiction, the protection is given for 50 years. Now, in another landmark case, now this was a case in European Union in 2011. The court has held that an intellectual creation is an author's own if it reflects the author's personality. That is the case if the author was able to express his creative abilities in the production of the work by making free and creative choices. The author of a portrait photograph can stamp the work created by his personal touch. So this emphasizes the need for human personality input to the creation of copyright works. That means they are considering both the aspects, human touch plus AI touch. and they are giving the copyright or the authorship to both the AI as well as the person who has given the inputs. Now, there was another case in Berlin where Warner Music signing a record deal with Endil. Now, this Endil is an algorithm which was developed by a startup which was based in Berlin. Now, this Endil created this tailor-made custom sound frequency based on personal user input, such as weather, time of the day, location, biometric details. Now, in this case, the co-founders and the software engineers. So the person who has given the input to that AI and the person who has developed that AI, that was ND. Now both were listed as songwriters in order to register the copyright of the music. Now this highlighted the practical implication for the discussion of copyright, ownership of copyright in AI generated works. Now, when we address these ambiguities, the first question we ask is that who the law would consider is the person who is making the arrangements, is the person who is giving the inputs, or is it the algorithm which is doing everything? You just need to give the input. And certain AIs which are working today now, they even don't require the input. They will automatically arrange different algorithms. So the question is whether copyright should be conferred on the maker of a pen or the writer. Who gets the copyright? Now, granting copyright to the person who made the operation of artificial intelligence, it possibly seems to be the most sensible approach. Like we can follow this model of UK and India where the authorship is given to both the person who has generated that AI and the person who is giving the inputs. Now, the question which left unaddressed is, what if the AI automatically arranges those algorithms when you don't require even the human input? How you will address this issue? How that AI will register itself in the Copyright Office? Now, these are the ambiguities which are coming up. Now, certain questions which might come up when you see all these presentations, evolution of copyright in India, evolution of copyright in Russia, and different trademark secrets, certain questions which can come up, like India joined the system in 2013, the Madrid system. And what happened in this Madrid system was that international trademark system is governed by two treaties. There are two treaties which govern the trademark system. One is the Madrid Agreement, which concerns the international registration of marks, and the other is the Madrid Protocol, which relates to the Madrid Agreement concerning the international registration of marks, 1989. Now, India joined these three WIPO treaties designed to ease the search of trademarks and industrial designs, helping both the brand owners and the designers in their effort to obtain protection for their work. Because if you're generating something, at least you need the protection that no one copies that. Why we see all these protection? Why we see the designs and the logos of certain companies, like we have Adidas, we have Nike. Nike has a different design. Adidas has a different design. McDonald's has a different design. Each one is having their logo, their identity. Everyone needs the protection of their identity. No one wants the other person to copy their identity because it's their creation. They have given a lot of money, they have given a lot of work, intellectual work, and they have generated that. So we need the protection of our identity. And this we can do through trademark and industrial designs. We have the treaties. So India became the part of 34th member of Vienna Agreement, and NICE Agreement in 88th member, and Locarno Agreement, India became the 57th member. Now, when we carry this, the positive experience, which we can say from this, because most of the transactions and centralized trademark applications, because it has made, after following these conventions, the process of registration for trademark has become easy in India. And most of the people are applying for their trademarks. Whatever company they are coming up or whatever entity they are coming up, whatever logo they are giving to those companies and entities, they're easily able to protect those by filing the trademark. So the protocol application may be in different languages like French, English, or Spanish, but even it helps India. So any changes in the details of the right holder, like name, address, can be changed easily by sending the single documents to these international bureaus. So it has made, by signing all the treaties, the application procedure for your trademarks protection has become easy, because you not only want your trademark protection in India, because your products may be exported outside in different countries, and no country is different from another, like, because each country is dependent on the resources of each other countries. We cannot live in isolation. So we need our protection in India, we need our protection in Australia, and we need our protection in St. Petersburg. And that's why we need to file our trademark in their countries as well. So these international treaties have made these procedure a lot easy. Now, when we talk about the evolution of IP rights for inventions, particularly when we talk about utility models and the design patents. So when we come to the global context, there is no as such acceptance of the word utility model, because some countries may define it in different way using these terms utility model, because some countries may have different concepts. So in one country, the national law may say it as a utility model protection. Like in Australia, it is referred as innovation patent. In Malaysia, it is referred as utility innovation. In France, it is referred as utility certificate. And in Belgium, it is referred as short-term patent. So the confusion which reflects the fact within the international arena is a consideration of the nature and extent of protection under various national utility laws, because different countries have different ways to define it. So there are currently approximately 75 countries which provide in some or the other way the utility model protection. Included among the countries which do not have utility model regime are significant, like countries like US, United Kingdom, and Canada don't have utility models. Now, the ideal utility model, how you should look, that what an ideal utility model should look like. So first, it must have a subject matter of protection. Now, this utility model law should comprise a detailed list of excluded subjects, like which subjects you want to protect for your patent law. Second, it must have a non-examination system, at least for the first patent of registrations, so that it can become easily for the persons who invent, they can easily register for that model. Second, third thing can be a renewal fees. So after your patent get expired, the fees which you require to renew it, that patent, that should be easily available. Then the most important thing is the novelty, because most of the country go for this. How novel is your patent? So most developed countries have introduced universal novelty, because moreover enforcement problems develop if there is a lower level of novelty, because it is the most important aspects which is being addressed. Now when we come to the next part, intellectual property. Now this refers to creation of minds, inventions, as we have seen the definition. When we talk about industrial design patent law in India, so in India we have a Indian Design Act of 2000, which covers the design patent. Now, when we come to the design patent, the application process is the same as it relates with other patents. If you design patent application, it passes through an examination. So an observer of allowance will send you, or your agent or attorney they will ask you to pay an issue fees, through which your application for a design patent may much look simpler. Now this specification is short and follows a predefined form. Only one claim is permitted and it must follow a specific form. So the drawings in a design patent are similar to those in a utility patent, except that the design patent drawings are created to show the ornamental features of the inventions somewhat. Now, when it comes to the trade secrets, now when we talk about trade secrets, there have been certain recent advances in technology, because as we see the ease of sharing, anyone can share, anyone can copy, or anyone can store information in the digital world. So one of the biggest challenges, it is not a challenge in India, it is challenge everywhere, which comes up to the businesses, the protection of their confidential business information. How to protect this business information, confidential. Now, this information can include business strategies, proposal, client databases, information, compilations, designs, programs, drawings, devices, formula, or it can be a composition of any of those heads. Now, India has no specific trade secret law till now. Indian courts have upheld the trade secrets protection under various statutes. We have different statutes for their protection, like we have contract law. In contract law, we can protect the interest of the consumers or the persons who are creating such information. We have a copyright law. We have principles of equality in our constitution, which protects these rights. We have Information Technology Act that particularly deals with intermediaries liabilities, those websites who are breaching these confidentiality. So this section 72 of Information Technology Act provides certain protection, but it is very limited to the electronic records. Now, when we see the future of trade secrets in India, because we need the protection of our confidentiality. So India is a signatory to the Paris Convention. Now, it is relevant to mention the Article 1, Subclause 2 of the Agreement on Trade-related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights, which states that intellectual property rights shall include protection of undisclosed information. That means your confidentiality should be preserved. So on May 12th, 2016, India approved the National IP Rights Policy, which has 7 objectives in it. Now, one of these objectives is to ensure an effective legal and legislative framework for the protection of IP rights. Now, in a discussion paper on IP rights at the subsequent US-India Trade Policy Forum, which was held in 2016, the Indian representative noted that India protects trade secrets through a common law approach, and reiterated that country's commitment to the strong protection of trade secrets. Now, when it comes to the authority, intellectual property rights in India is administered by Office of the Controller General of Patents, Designs and Trademarks. Now, this is a subordinate office of the Government of India, and this office administers the laws of patent, design, trademark, and geographical indications. Generally, the jurisdiction, we can say the area which is given to the protection. So district courts generally have unlimited pecuniary jurisdiction in civil side. However, there are certain high courts in India like Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, Shimla, and Jammu and Kashmir, where these high courts enjoy the court of first instance, where IP disputes where it is above, or parties can directly approach to the high courts, because the hierarchy in Indian law is, first we have a Supreme Court, the highest court of the land, then we have high courts, and then we have district courts. So in most of the cases, the power is given to the district courts to see the issues of IPR infringement. There are no specialized courts for IPR. The courts which are already there, they have been given the jurisdiction of IPR rights and cases. In the first instance, the power is given to the district courts, but in certain cities, in certain areas, the high courts can be court of direct instance. Parties can directly go to the high courts. They are not required to the district courts. So there is a section 89 of Civil Procedure Code in India, which again provides for a mechanism for alternative dispute resolution, and stipulates that where it appears to the court that there exist elements of settlement that is acceptable to the court. So parties can go for ADR. Like in Russia, they have a specific ADR codes, alternative dispute resolution codes for the protection of IPR rights. That is not the case in India. We don't have a specific codes of ADR. Those codes, they can work as ADR codes. And if the parties go for agreement, because we have also alternative dispute resolution law, we have ADR law in India as well. Again, they can go for settlement in those laws as well. Now, when it comes, this is also very interesting question which we see these days, because when a company, which is a, you can say, which is a huge entity in this world, like we can talk about certain companies like Google, they have a huge market. You have Apple, they have a huge market. Now, what happens is that these companies try to develop their monopoly in the market. And how they develop that monopoly is, for example, Apple may say that we exclude all the different applications like Play Store from the Apple. So again, they are capturing the market. They are trying to dominate that market by not allowing those other applications. Now, Apple may say that we have the patent. We have the invention of the Apple iPhone. We are the developers. So we can do that. We can exclude you because it is our invention. Now, this way, one, they are trying to abuse the market position. Now, different codes in, we can say in Europe, and Indian codes also address this issue. How to draw a correlation and how to protect the dominance of the market by these giants, included Twitter, Facebook, Google, and iPhones. How to stop them, how to stop their dominance in the market. And how they can do that is, like in US, government has used certain competition laws and practices, which is they ensure that there is a fair competition which exists in the open market economy. So Article 5A subclause 2 of Paris Convention talks about this. It says that the grant of compulsory license to prevent any abuses which might result from granting monopolistic patent rights. Similarly, there is Article 8 subclause 2, 40 plus 2, which talks about that TRIPS allows the member countries to take appropriate measures to prevent the abuse of IP rights through practices which unreasonably restrain trade or adversely affect the international transfer of technology. Because we are in an era where we need a transfer of technology. We are not in an era that one particular giant company comes up and acquires the whole market. So the relationship between competition law and patent rights may seem inherently contradictory, because patent is saying you are the inventor. You can have your invention. Nobody can copy that invention. Someone copies that, they violate IPR rights. But on the other side, competition law, which talks about that monopoly should not be established in a market. There should be transfer of technology. So we need to find a balance between these two legislations, where IPR rights also gets protected and there's no dominance in the market. Like we have seen, even in Russian courts, I've seen the decision where they have put up a huge penalty on iPhone, Apple, and other companies which are trying to abuse a market position through IPR rights. So a legislative devices should be there which can promote both competition law as well as IPR rights. Now, when it comes to the penalties which the Indian courts have put up on the infringement of IPR rights, so we have the following laws which governs us. We have Patent Act 1970. We have Trademarks Act 1999. We have Copyright Act 1957. We have Design Act 2001. And there are, like I addressed, there are both civil and criminal remedies which are mentioned under these acts and which are very important. So there is Section 63 of Copyright Act 1957, which deals with the offenses of infringement of copyright. So if someone infringes your copyright or other rights, the maximum penalty which can be imposed is 3 years of imprisonment, and maximum fine which can be imposed is 50,000 rupees. Now this fine can go up to 2 lakh rupees as well. Now Indian Patent Act also considers this facilitation of entries and registers, claiming patent rights in unauthorized ways, which are similarly punishable like 3 years imprisonment and 2 lakh rupees fine. So what happens if someone uses your trademark? So for example, if I uses the trademark of Miss Shruti Patolia, who has a trademark of Adidas, and if I uses her trademark, what happens to me is, so when a person uses your trademark, like Praprit uses the trademark of Shruti, without authorization of her permission, I've not taken consent from her, and I've taken her trademark. Now what happens? That it amounts to infringement, which is a law which is given in section 29 of Trademark Act. So in case of infringement, first she will send me a notice that Mr. Prapti, this is my trademark. I've got my trademark registered. You cannot use my trademark. So first she will send me a notice. Despite of her notice, if I keep infringing her trademark, again court can take up 3 years of imprisonment to me behind bars or 2 lakh rupees penalty. So these are different laws which governs both in the perspectives of India and Russia. And I think now we can take up your doubts.
Okay, first of all, great thank you for you and Ms. Shruti for your presentation. Very big thank you from me personally for your opinion about the ideal utility model law. It's just very interesting ideas. Thank you. Also, I wanted to ask a question about artificial intelligence part, AI, yes? On your slide addressing ambiguity, there is a very nice comparison. There are some questions in chat, but I will read them a bit later. And you compared the analog and digital world. So, for example, in analog world, we say that who will be the author of a maker of a pen or the writer? Yes. So I have just one comment. Let's imagine that we transfer it into the digital world, and I think you have in Windows. You have Paint program, yes? So we can use the brush, yes? So digital brush or digital pen in, for example, this Paint program. And I would like to ask personally, you, who do you think will be the author of, I don't know, of some logo which was created by this electronic brush created in Paint? Again, we have the programmer who created this Paint program. We have a person who used this electronic instrument, this software, and we actually have this algorithm. So who do you think will be the author? We've created the logo.
Created this program of digital pen, Paint, and the person who has given the input. So both persons will get the authorship of that drawing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
To me, it seems just fair and reasonable, because the person who has given us a lot of labor to develop that algorithm or to develop that Paint application, that person also deserves the credit, and the person who has given the input, he also deserves the credit. So if I see the principles of natural justice, the first thing which will come to my mind is both persons should be given the authorship.
Okay. Okay.
And similarly, our Indian courts are doing the same only. They have started giving the authorship to both the persons.
Thank you. So I'm reading the questions from the chat. So the question is about patent attorneys. I think patent attorneys in India. So is it difficult to find a patent attorney if someone wants to register a trademark in India? So the question about Institute of Patent Attorneys in India. Yes.
Even if I talk about like the patent attorneys in India, it's not that much difficult to find out. Like for example, if I'm working in a university, so my university has a dedicated department to IPR rights because we have engineering department, we have law department, we have designing, we can say fashion designing department, where people develops different trademark logos. So we have a test IP attorneys with our institute, and if a person from our university wants to file a trademark, those persons will submit their application to that particular department which is dealing with IPR rights, and that person, they have attorneys and they will facilitate us to get the trademark of our logo. So it's not at all difficult. You can easily get the trademark attorneys and IPR attorneys in India, and you can find them everywhere because this is a new field, and this is a new field to make a lot of money. So you will find many people now practicing IPR because it's a new field, and it's a field which will develop more and more because now we are living in a technological era where most of the things are governed by technology. So I think this is a good field to make money as well if you want to go for IPR laws. And you will not be recognized only in your country. You have people applying from Australia to get the trademark in India. So that's a good aspect of this law.
Yeah, our
So
area.
I would advise all of you to become a good IPR attorneys.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I think we just have thanks, many thanks, and thank you in our chat. Well, we're still waiting for the questions, if any appear in the chat.
Even if the question appears later on, you can send us on the mail and we can address those as well.
Sure. Yes, thank you. I think that's it. No more questions for now, but if you do, please, it's easier to find, it's very easy to find our email address, and I will also type it in the chat, the email address of the organizers. If any questions appear, please write them, and we will address them to our speakers. We will definitely do our best to answer all the questions. That was extremely interesting to listen about evolution of IP laws legislation in Russia, in India. It's kind of comparison. Yes, we had quite a comparable situation at the beginning of the 20th century, and we are looking forward for development of IP area in our countries because it's, as you said, a very fast growing and innovative industry. So of course it's very important to learn and know our history. It helps us to improve.
If I can I was looking that we can organize a forum for the students. Students can discuss different case laws in different countries which are coming on IPR rights. So your IP forum students and my university students will have different list of cases which are coming in different countries on IPR rights via protection through AI. So I think it can be a great forum where people can address different issues and they can learn from each other very well.
It's not like a moot court, but it's just presentation of different IP cases where students can discuss the arguments for each side.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, so that's a great idea, of course. and our IP Development Foundation is looking for such great new ideas to share and discuss new cases. Of course, I think after our conference is over, we will
Because
write by email and
I think
discuss.
the more we learn through listening to each other, because when we are listening to each other and we are in the same, we can say, same arena of knowledge, so we can easily take up from each other. But when we are reading, it is little bit difficult to get the point. But when we are listening and seeing picture representation, it helps us to understand more. So because we can do this, we can start a law journal together and we can have a monthly review of different case laws which are coming up on IP forum. Our students can talk on Indian laws and different countries. Your students can talk and write on, we can have a law journal on patent laws or IPR rights. But the forum would be most interesting one, because when the students will address those cases, obviously they will learn from each other and they will learn different jurisdictions. So it will make them an IPR representative globally.
Broader approach. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I agree.
Broader approach.
That's right. Yes, I think we will definitely organize that. We need to discuss the details by email, I think. And
yes, I'll share the proposal with you.
Sure, thank you. So once again, we thank our speakers very much. No more questions for today. So please have a nice day. We will share the link so that the recording can be watched over and over. And the presentation can also be sent to the people who can request it. So thank you once again. Please take care. Very good luck. Yes, thank you for taking part today. Okay.
Thank you.
See you then. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
And till the next event. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.